back to another fan reading on r/creepcast. Oh my gosh, Tales of the Creeps. Good lord, I did that. I was watching the Slender, the Marble Horse video today. I guess that just got stuck in my head. Anyway, I'm still a little under the weather, but I'm getting better, I promise. Anyway, today on Tales of the Creeps, we are reading When We Moved to Alabama, My Mom Became a Husk, but it also has another title called Parker's Ladder. This is by someone named a Clarence Storytelly. I don't know how to pronounce that. They have written other work, and I will leave the description. I will leave the link in the description below so you can check out their profile and their other work. I also have a Discord if y'all want to join and just chat and hang out and suggest stories there. So both those links will be in the description below. So without further ado, we'll get right into the story, and I am very excited. This is a long one. It's 2 parts. So, all right, let's strap in and get going. Okay, chapter 1. The unforgiving Alabama sun beamed down on Highway 12, making the asphalt hot enough to fry bacon. Pine thickets stretched throughout the Piedmont and lined on earth on either side of the road. The humidity was suffocating like a steam towel to the face, making every breath more difficult than the last. For 13-year-old Parker Ellis, the new kid from Indiana, this summer felt like an exile in the desert, torturous compared to the milder Midwestern weather. The yellow house on Country Road 8, his new home with his mom, April, was a musty-smelling husk of slump support beams and peeling floral wallpaper. Porch windows and attic all creaked at night as if the place was haunted. Parker's mom referred to the move as a fresh start after his father left. Parker didn't see it that way. His friends he'd known since the first grade were nearly 500 miles away because his parents couldn't fix their problems, or perhaps because Parker's detention antics had pushed them over the edge. His father got to stay in a terre haute in a nice condo apartment, while his mother escaped to Anniston, Alabama, dragging Parker along with a little more than a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles suitcase. He spent his first week exploring a half-acre vacant lot, swatting mosquitoes and pulling dandelions. School didn't start for several weeks, so the days dragged on, lonely and boring. His mom worked 12 to 16-hour shifts at Anniston Memorial and would leave pizza pockets and popcorn for him on the way out the door to work. A huge empty house filled with loneliness. In desperation, he reached out to his friends back home, but gave up after several unanswered AIM messages. Sorry. His face held a playful smirk like he was hiding a secret. Wait, hold on, did I skip something? I did skip something. Holy crap. On the 8th day of isolation, Isaac showed up. Parker sat on his front porch, whittling down a discarded stick into a spear. He theorized that it would be easier to eat marshmallows, but he was curious if his mom would mind a fire in the backyard. He was lost in his thoughts when a bicycle stopped at the end of the driveway. The boy, who appeared to be around his age, leaned on the handlebars, thin and tanned by the sun, his long black hair falling into his eyes. His face held a playful smirk like he was hiding a secret. "Haven't seen you around here before," the boy in the faded cartoon shark t-shirt called out. Parker answered without looking up. "Just moved here a week ago." "You gonna whittle all day, or you got plans for something fun?" Parker stopped and looked up, knife still in his hand. Nobody had spoken 2 words to him since 3 days ago at the gas station when the cashier mumbled his order total. He'd only seen a handful of other kids outside at all. He narrowed his eyes intently at the kid, incredulous this could be malicious. "Who are you?" "Isaac Boone. Live up the road that way." Turned and pointed right toward the driveway. "Saw you by yourself and figured you were someone worth knowing." Isaac tossed his bike into the gravel and walked up to the porch. Plopped down on the ground next to Parker. Smelled strongly of sweat, pine leaves, and pennies. Parker shrugged and continued his whittling, not sure what to say to the kid. Isaac wasn't bothered. He leaned back on the fence and stretched his legs until he decided to talk again. "So, you ever been in a scrap?" "Huh?" "You know, a tussle, a fight, black eyes, broken teeth, blood." Parker shook his head honestly as his stomach tightened. The only fight he'd ever been involved with water balloons, and it was completely by accident. "What about you?" Isaac's cryptic smile stretched wide. "Once or twice. Nothing big. Just stupid kid stuff. You could probably hold your own in one, though. You got that look like you're constantly overthinking." Parker wasn't sure if he'd just been insulted or complimented. Chose to believe the latter. He hardly ever got praise among his terre Latte friends. He began twirling his now finished spear just to have something to do with his hands. So, what's there to do around here? Isaac's eyes beamed with possibilities. There's plenty if you're not scared. Creek has catfish. The old mill down Highway 12, people go exploring in there, and the quarry teenagers sneak in and jump off the cliffs into the water. Man, sorry, my voice just, yeah. Parker hesitated. Kids back home don't do stuff like that. The chorus sounded like a broken leg waiting to happen. The mill reminded him of a horror movie he saw way too young about it being a hideout for serial killers. The creek seemed the most unmanageable, and he made him much less of a coward. Okay, maybe the creek. Isaac slapped his knee and snorted. Good enough. I'll show you around. They spent the afternoon tossing rocks in the water and wading it up in their ankles. Isaac talked a mile a minute about how he wrestled a 20-pound catfish barehanded last summer. Parker feigned being impressed with what he was sure was a tall tale, but that was still the most fun he'd had in Alabama so far. Being around Isaac felt like being in a storm. Exciting, risky, but truly alive. Two headed to Parker's house as the settling sun cast gold and pink across the sky. Their sneakers squelched with every step, and Parker's legs were covered in thicket scratches and mosquito bites, but he was happy. They collapsed onto the porch, and Parker went inside and brought back 2 room temperature colas. You all right, Parker? Isaac asked after taking a sip. Thanks, Parker said as a shy smile slowly overtook his lips. You're not terrible either. Isaac tilted his head and studied Parker for a moment. You ever had a best friend before? A real one? Parker thought about his friend back in Indiana, the ones he'd spent hours building blanket forts and riding bikes until dark. At his going away party, they all agreed to keep in touch, but Parker's inbox with no new messages proved that a lie. Back home, sure, he said softly, but not here. Isaac nodded, and his grin returned even brighter than before. You and me, we could be best friends, but we gotta do it right. Parker raised an eyebrow prayerfully in curiosity. How? A friendship ladder. Isaac's voice began to brim with mischief. 10 rungs, challenges we have to do together. Once we get to level 10, best friends. No shortcuts, no quitting. You in? Parker stared at the soda can in his hand. It seemed absurd at first, like some forced activity at summer camp, but Isaac's energy and enthusiasm was contagious. The thought of having at least one friend when school started seemed like an advantage. What kind of challenges? He asked. Anything we want, Isaac said. We can make it up as we go along, as long as we do every step together. Parker paused, but the hopeful light in Isaac's eyes sealed it. He reached out his hand. I'm in. Isaac shook it with a strong, forceful grip. Step 1's tomorrow. Be ready. As Isaac pedaled out of Parker's driveway and onto the fading light. As Isaac pedaled out of Parker's driveway and into the fading light, Parker leaned against the front door of the porch until he was out of sight. Summer night loomed hot as ever, but it no longer felt like exile. Oh, there's the burp. That's normal for this channel. Felt more like a ladder he was about to take the first step. That was chapter 1. Chapter 2. Okay, so first, chapter 1. These games or challenges are definitely the thing that probably turns his mom into a husk or just like dehumanizes her. There's going to be some terrible stuff coming. I guarantee it. Alright, chapter 2. Parker tossed a blanket into the corner of the room. His heart startled for a second as Isaac tossed his backpack on the carpet a few feet away. The old house groaned and creaked as usual, causing Parker to glance at the door every few minutes, half expecting his mom to barge in. He seemed indifferent to have a guest overnight when he asked, but Parker chalked it up to her busy schedule. He hoped Isaac and his mom would get along. This place is like a mansion, Isaac said while belly flopping onto Parker's bed. His eyes curiously scanned the room. Did the ghost show up after midnight or before? He joked and made ghost noises, making Parker laugh out loud. Nah, nothing like that. My mom got it for cheap because it's old. Parker slid a pile of comics under his bed. He didn't want to come across as the dorky kid from Indiana. Can't be too loud after 10. Isaac shrugged and grabbed a bag of chips from his backpack. No sweat. My folks act weird sometimes too. You want some of these? Threw the bag in Parker's direction. They sat, crunching chips and talking. Parker talked about the time he tried to build a model rocket in the backyard that launched and immediately caught on fire. Isaac cackled and followed up with how he pranked his algebra teacher by pouring cayenne pepper in his coffee. Man, you're fearless, Parker said, shaking his head. He envied Isaac's boldness. Nah, Asympto's just really boring. Isaac's smile faded briefly, then he changed the subject to something else. Got any games? Parker pulled out a deck of cards, and they played for a while until Isaac tried to cheat by hiding cards under his leg. The home felt warmer with Isaac, creaked of the old house, and faded in the laughter. When things settled down, Parker heard cabinets opening and closing downstairs. Mom was probably still unpacking for the move. What's up? Isaac asked. Nothing. Thought I heard something. Parker forced a friendly smile. Want to watch a movie? He grabbed his portable DVD player and they crouched around it watching some blockbusters from the 80s about an alien invasion. Parker kept one ear out of the living room Parker kept one ear out for the living room downstairs. The cabinet slamming had finally stopped. Did he imagine the whole thing? By midnight they were sprawled out on the sleeping bag and bed surrounding the soda cans. Isaac sat up. You ever think about the future? Like, what do you think you will do? Parker pondered the question as he stared up at the ceiling. An astronaut. I always wanted to see the moon up close. Or an accountant. My dad says they make big bucks. He glanced at Isaac. What about you? Isaac picked up a crumb from his shirt. Maybe something big, like a famous actor. Or maybe I'll just ride the rails. His tone was indifferent, and he didn't look at Parker. Not like my family has some great plans for me or anything. Parker waited patiently for more, but Isaac just yawned and rolled over in his sleeping bag. I'm about to crash. Parker got up and turned off the lights before going to bed himself. Isaac's backyard rivaled a jungle exhibit with how the kudzu vines overgrew the metal fence and with weeds so thick you could barely take a step without tripping. Isaac led the way with a deep... oh my gosh. Holy crap, I am mush-mouthing so much. So thick you could barely take a step without tripping. Isaac led the way with a deer path he had pulled and worn himself, while Parker trailed him breathlessly, carrying his dome tent behind him like a wayward dog. So, they're camping now? I thought they were spending the night with each other. That kind of, flopped pretty suddenly. This is it, Isaac said as he stomped to a point to a cleared circle among the weeds. Sorry for the long hike. My grandma's got ears like a basement hound. She'd bowl us alive if we were to wake her up. Parker turned and looked back at the house. From here, it was only a black square against a larger black backdrop. One small yellow light shone through the window. Is she really that mean? He inquired while wrestling with adjusting tent poles. Isaac leaned forward and snorted. She's not much mean. She's just old and cranky. It's 7 o'clock bedtime. Said in a manner of fact that was relatable. They finally got the tents up and enough. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. They finally got the tents up enough in time. Oh my gosh, I need to slow down. They finally got the tents up in enough time to beat the mosquitoes. Isaac made a small fire in a circle of cinder blocks, painting his face in various orange hues, his expression all smiles. Rung 3, he announced before spearing a hot dog. Nervous yet? Parker laughed louder than he planned to and bit into his own hot dog. It was awful. The outside was bitter and crunchy like charcoal, but the inside was worse, soft, mushy, and sour like old milk. Gross. What kind of hot dogs are they eating? How long did they cook them for? Or did they cook them at all? The boys dared each other to eat more and more. They ate 6 each, and surprisingly nobody managed to puke. Then they moved on to the other things. Ghost stories. Parker went first, dropped his voice into a low, gravelly croak, and told Isaac about a woman who had stumbled into his mother's emergency room in Terre Haute. Her jeans were ripped from head to ankle, deep, self-inflicted claw marks were raked down her legs. When the nurse lifted her onto the table, they noticed something under the skin of her thigh. Upon closer inspection, they saw that it wasn't a muscle or vein, but a foreign bulge. It rised slowly like a wheat grain in a breeze. One nurse assumed it was some kind of parasite and took a scalpel into the red and swollen patch of skin. As the skin was cut, something wet and slimy slid out. It was a slick, slug-like creature that looked like black ink. By the time it was completely extracted, it was the size of a fist. It was placed into the metal tray and immediately began consuming it into a faceless jelly-like body. The staff watched in horror as 5 more creatures slid out of the woman's leg and across the exam table. They moved fast as lightning and began latching themselves onto the staff in patience, but they didn't just bite and hang on like a deer tick, they ate. 6 of those things wreaked havoc on the hospital that night. And it was evacuated and completely empty by morning. Isaac was quiet, almost seemed distracted. Did I scare you? Or put you to sleep? Parker joked. Proud of his story, but sure Isaac could do better. Nah, it was good. It's just, well, have you ever been around someone who felt unreal? What do you mean? They act normal enough on a surface level. They greet neighbors and stick to their regular routines, but the rest of the time, it's like they're still learning how to be human. Isaac leaned closer to the fire, which encouraged Parker to move closer as well. I learned about this story from Guatemalan missionaries. Isaac leaned in and told his story like a monk recites a sacred text. Slow with the enchanting rhythm and unsettlingly calm, he told Parker the tale of a tiny, isolated tribe in Guatemala that was plagued by a spiritual sickness with no name and no known cause. It always began the same: fever, chills, aching joints, a normal, mild illness. But after the fever breaks, the real symptoms show up. People would stall, freeze in the middle of the stride or mid-sentence like they were lagging in a video game. They would stare into nothing, sometimes for hours, other times for a few minutes, as if their minds had been transported elsewhere. Within weeks, the illness had spread. Nearly 20 people began shuffling around like husks. The elders were fearful it would destroy the whole tribe with no cure. They were pressured to make an unthinkable decision. They gathered all the afflicted villages into a wooden hut at the edge of the village and pushed a boulder in front of the entrance. Then it was set on fire. The most unsettling part was silence. Gosh, that's rough. The afflicted obediently walked into the shed without making a sound. Nobody banged on the door to escape. Not a single person even screamed. The only sound was the cackle of burning wood. Parker shuddered at the thought, even though it was only a competition. Isaac clearly won. Later, the pair raided Isaac's backpack and found bottle rockets. Loaded them off one by one, aiming toward the moon, and the echo of the sound bounced off the pine wood like gunshots. Each explosion tore across the sky, creating a bright and violent laugh that was only theirs. For their own few seconds, the night belonged to them. Whew, another burp. Good Lord, there's a third one. Eventually, they both crawled into their individual tents, physically tired out but too energetic to sleep right away. Hey, Parker whispered from 6 feet away. You hear that? He looked into the lantern between them. What? Nothing. It's great, isn't it? Isaac snorted. Yeah, he said back sarcastically. It's great. No loud music, honking horns, or drunk college students, just the lullaby of crickets and cicadas. Parker stared up at the ceiling of the tent, feeling a great sense of belonging. Alright, that was chapter 2. I like how they're just kids, they're just like, I don't know what time period this is in, but I can appreciate where it's coming from, just kids being kids, camping out, telling ghost stories. I appreciate it. I like the vibe it has going on. So, alright, I'm going to pause real quick. I'm going to go get myself something to drink. Okay, chapter 3. Alright, before we start, I think Parker's mom definitely got infected with those slug-like things in the hospital. I think that's what's going to happen. Alright, here we go. The next weekend, Parker's mom had another long shift, 12 to 16 hours, depending on how many people were planning to drink and drive that night. She left a $20 bill in the fridge under a banana magnet, and a note that said, for pizza. Parker was relieved. He could invite Isaac over to play video games the whole night if they wanted. Isaac showed up around 8 with a pillowcase full of candy and all the blankets in his grandma's linen closet. They went through Parker's room too, ripping the covers off the bed and draping them over the dining chairs until the living room was a giant sprawling blanket fort. Its turrets and tunnels could rival Mario Bros. Oh my gosh. It started with Silent Hill 2, the PS2 whirring like a vacuum cleaner. Every sudden radio hiss made them jump. Isaac screeched really loud in Parker's ear during the alley encounter in the fog, making him throw the controller and nearly pee himself. At 2 a.m., they were hyped up on sugar and horror, constantly yelling. There was a hole, and tossing Jolly Ranchers at the TV whenever something moved in the dark. Parker passed out sometime around Brookhaven Hospital. Isaac awoke to the glow of the screen and the blinding bright sun of the morning. Blinding. When he came back from the bathroom, he noticed Parker's mom pulling into the driveway. Watched her get out of the car, pocket her keys, and walk up to the driveway. Her eyes were vacant as she walked through the front door. I think I'm right. She took 5 steps before pausing for a while. After what felt like way too long, Isaac got nervous. Miss April? She didn't answer, just kept staring like she saw something unusual in the distance. Russell moved just out of Isaac's vision. Parker had shifted in his sleep bag, pretending to wake up slowly, but Isaac sensed he was already awake. He didn't say anything. After about 3 minutes, Parker's mom continued walking down the hallway to the bathroom and turned on the water. Isaac finally let out his breath and didn't realize he was holding. Rung 4. Done. Parker shouted enthusiastically, nearly sending Isaac out of his skin in surprise. Almost halfway, he replied, while trying not to keep looking down to the hall to the bathroom. Parker's bedroom window slid upward with a noisy squeak. Paused briefly, paranoid his mom might hear it, but her bedroom door had been shut for hours, and the sound of muffled TV infomercials played through the room. Isaac was already waiting outside down the street. Crouched under the huge tree out of view of the street lights, carrying 2 fishing poles on his shoulder like rifles. They rolled their bikes in the ditch to avoid lights, walking slowly over the crunchy gravel. When they got away from any surrounding houses or sidewalks, they hopped on their bikes and pedaled hard with the wind and pine needles whipping their faces. The creek was nice, a shimmering dime in a fountain of darkness. Isaac pulled out a 6-pack of Mountain Dew and handed Parker a fishing pole. How's this supposed to work with no light? Watch, he whispered. Parker cast the line. 20 feet out they heard a faint plop and splash. Hear that? That's where the big ones are. Isaac then cast down the line and smacked the surface of the water like a diver. You don't need to look at the water, Isaac replied. Close your eyes, let the creek tell you. Parker did. He breathed in wet moss and closed his eyes. Then flickered the line. This time he felt something tug hard, just once, before the weight vanished. Isaac's bright smile flashed through the darkness. That's night fishing for you. Half listening, half praying. They never caught anything but mosquitoes. Yet as Parker reeled in his line, he didn't see it as empty. He was pulling the whole summer toward him, little by little. A week later, the same pull returned, but not on the line this time. Isaac showed up at Parker's at noon with a strange, chaotic energy. He wouldn't fully explain, just kept saying not to bring anything or take anything back. You'll see. Oh, I don't... that's weird. I don't trust that. The rickety shed sat crouched 100 yards from the highway, half swallowed up by the weeds and rust. The roof was full of holes, letting the sun poke through the many spotlights. As it kicked the warped door, leading to a mist of mildew, gasoline, and dust. My dad used to use this place as a community shed. People could bring broken lawn equipment in it and get fixed. Nails, screws, everything available to get or take. He walked over and put his hands on the wall. A workbench sat in the corner, propped up on wooden planks, top of the coffee can full of nails. Rust and a broken lawnmower sat in the opposite corner under a bulletin board covered in yellow newspaper pages, dated a couple years ago. Local missionary couple missing in Guatemala. Friends and family of David and Laura Boone, longtime members of Anniston Baptist Church, volunteers with Anniston and Baptist Outreach, pleading for answers after the couple disappearance in Central America. Dang. It was his mom and dad that told him that story. Holy crap. According to Laura's mother, Miss Carter, the Boones made a brief satellite phone call from a remote village on July 31st. Laura told me they would be on the first flight out in a week. That was the last time anyone heard from them. When the couple failed to board their flight schedule for August 6th from Guatemala City to Atlanta, church members called the mission board and Guatemalan authorities. Before he could get close enough to see the picture of the family under the article, Isaac walked over. His face went still as he leaned on the wall with his right arm and covering up the newspaper. We should go before someone sees us, he muttered, visibly uncomfortable as he fidgeted with his pocket. Parker stepped over a spilled box that had once held rusted screws and matchbooks. He tried to pick it up, but Isaac was there within seconds, snatching it from his hand. For half a second, Parker could see something new, or see something raw and terrified flash across his face, until the mask went back up. We're done. Just wanted you to see it, Isaac said, already moving to the exit. They tumbled out of the room in the blinding noonday light. Isaac walked fast with his head down and jammed his hands to his pockets. Parker had to jog to catch up. Half a mile down Highway 12, when the shed was only an oh my gosh, indescript speck of brown in the distance, Isaac finally spoke again. Don't go back there without me. They rode their bikes home in silence as the smooth patter of tires on asphalt. Alright, that was chapter 1. Oh, I like what they're setting. I really do like what they're setting up. There's definitely a mystery to Isaac. There's definitely something he doesn't want Parker to know, and I'm really excited to get into it. So, alright, let's quit wasting more time. Let's get into part 2, the final part of when my mother, oh my gosh, when we moved to Alabama, my mom became a husk. Alright, okay, part 2, chapter 4. It's just what it says. This is like chapter 1 of part 2. It's just how it's labeled. Okay. The fluorescent lights inside the gas station buzzed like dying insects. Parker stood in front of the candy rack trying to choose between Twizzlers and black licorice when the bell above the door chimed again. 2 girls walked in with an older woman who was probably one of their moms, judging by the sun-bleached hair. One girl wore a pink tank top and cut-off shorts. The other had braces that shimmered every time she laughed. Parker pretended to study the nutrition facts on a pack of Skittles, but he caught Isaac in the reflection of the soda case. Isaac was completely still, pork rinds in hand, as he tracked the girl in pink like her shirt was a laser pointer. The girls both ordered fountain drinks, whispering and giggling loud enough that everyone in the cramped store could hear. When they passed the counter, the braces girl looked right at Isaac and rolled her eyes. Ugh, no way. He's a smelly weirdo, she whispered too loudly. Pink tank top burst into laughter right behind the guys. Parker felt heat swim up his neck, but Isaac didn't react. They checked out first, buying 2 Cokes and a bag of pork rinds. Outside, the girls were getting into a gray, dusty minivan. Mom lingered in the store, catching up with the cashier. She finally walked out and immediately greeted Isaac. Isaac Boone, is that you? It's been ages. She smiled the way adults do when they are about to ask an uncomfortably awkward question. How are your folks? Still in South America? Isaac's face shuddered to complete blankness before he blinked and put on a reassuring smile. Yes, ma'am. Still out of town. The woman's smile changed to confusion for a half a second, then returned to friendly. Well, let them know I'm praying for them, and if your grandma needs a mahjong partner, she's got my number. She waved a greeting to Parker, who reciprocated, then joined the girls in the minivan. Good Lord, no. What the oh, did he how did he keep this secret? Did nobody figure this out? Ooh, I'm locked in. I'm into this. Let's keep reading. Parker took a deep breath and looked jittery. The newspaper clipping from the shed had not left his mind. He was sure that his almost best friend was hiding something. Isaac was already walking to their bikes, with the pork rind bag shaking and crinkling in every step. Parker followed, swallowing hard as a bitter copper taste suddenly coated his tongue. That was the exact moment the sky opened up without warning. 1 second they were walking with their snacks, and the next it was gray and rain fell sideways. Isaac popped a wheelie, half laughing, half swearing, and headed toward the old County Bridge 9. Parker followed, clothes already stuck to his skin before they even got to cover. The concrete arc boomed from the rain, above sheeting off the edges. The bike clattered against the concrete wall, spokes dripping softly. The occasional thunderclap was punctured by their heavy breathing, under the bridge smelling of mildew and moss. Parker wrung out his polo shirt, which didn't really help. Isaac found an overturned 5-gallon bucket to plop down on, with his elbows to the knees, staring at the water, pooling in a puddle of broken concrete. Parker slid down the wall and sat on the ground, concrete cold but dry on his athletic shorts. I hate rain like this, he muttered. Isaac didn't respond. The darkness underneath the bridge felt miles away from the comfort of their blanket fort. My mom and dad used to have a normal relationship. Happy, even. He stopped and swallowed hard, joking around and laughing about everything. Then after my sister was born, it all went downhill. My dad started staying at work late. Mom would spend all day in her room. I got a bad grade in algebra and was sure I was going to get in trouble. Instead, my mom took me into her room and told me my dad was moving out. Parker paused as his voice cracked at the last word. She said he was having trouble handling everything lately, and I knew everything involved me. Isaac didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the water. Maybe it's my fault. Parker whispered. Couldn't get out any more words. One small tear fell from his face. He quickly wiped it away. Cleared his throat, and then the grief bulldozed him. His shoulders shook as his face turned beet red. Isaac sat in silence. Parker was done. He wiped his face with the back of his hand and his damp shirt. The thunder finally beginning to move away, and the rain turned to a drizzle. Before they decided to leave, Parker prompted Isaac. What about you? He said, sniffling still. How come you live with your grandma? Parker had been curious for weeks, but the encounter in the gas station parking lot finally pushed him to ask. Isaac turned to him slowly and looked at Parker before the first time in a while. "You glad your mom's still here?" he said, soft enough to be muffled by the rain. Before Parker could ask another question, Isaac stood up and grabbed his bike. "Storm's letting up. We gotta move fast before the creek floods." Parker stood up and tried to stop Isaac. "Isaac, would you come on?" They stopped under the bridge and into a lightly wet air. Isaac stopped Parker and held out his pinky finger. "We're going to finish this ladder, no matter what." "Swear it." Parker snorted. "What are we, in elementary school?" Isaac didn't... Oh, Isaac. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Isaac. That's a great name. Isaac didn't join in the laughter. He didn't even blink, but kept his fingers sticking out like a loaded gun. Parker rolled his eyes, but still hooked his pinky anyway. Pinky swear was safer than a blood oath. "I swear." Isaac gave one strong, long tug hard enough for it to ache afterward. He let oh my gosh, he let go first and wiped his hand on his damp shorts and swung his leg over his bike without a word. The night they completed rung 8, the sky was so clear it was painful to look at. They rode out at 1:30 a.m., no headlights on the helmets, coasting for the last half mile so they wouldn't wake anything that might be alive in that hour. Highway 12 was empty in either direction. They dropped their bikes near the ditch and walked into the road and up the double yellow line. Then laid on their backs. Above their heads were the stars swirled like a salty shaker in the sky. "I'm getting out of here. Florida, maybe. Or Texas. A place with warm weather and a beach. If you pick Texas, let me come with." Isaac didn't answer him right away. Crickets serenaded in the distance as an 18-wheeler rumbled. "Though, some things, they follow you no matter how far you run," Isaac finally said. His words hung heavier than humid air. "At least I get a head start." Isaac stared sharply against the starlight with eyes angled upward like he was reading the constellations. Parker wanted to know more, but his questions got lodged in his throat. Instead, he joined Isaac in staring at the moon until everything began to spin. He had to close his eyes. 3 days later, they began rung 9. Isaac knocked on Parker's door at the dawn with a handsaw, a hammer, and a backpack filled with nails, probably found in the shed. He worked in the weeds behind Isaac's house. Discarded pallets, scrap tin, and even old billboards were scavenged and dragged through the brush. Parker's arm was sore and red by the next day. Alright, I'm gonna get another water break. Excuse me, please. Okay, where was I? Parker's arms were sore and red the next day. Isaac never said an enthusiastic word. He sawed and hammered the walls of the fort like it was his job. The third afternoon, the platform was already 6 feet up. They crawled out onto the wooden planks and looked across the tops of the trees in enough that the birds could never find it. They took a break from the baking under the sun and headed to Parker's pale yellow house. When they got to the driveway, they could see Parker's mom in the window. She drifted from the window to window like a bird in an invisible cage. She stood in the kitchen first, and then the living room, and back again, over and over. Ugh, I don't like that. Both boys went still as they watched their silhouette float behind the kitchen curtains. Parker watched for a full minute before this discomfort began, crawling under his skin. She wasn't actually looking for anything. She just stared like a zombie. Minutes passed, maybe 5 or 10. Parker's stomach started flipping in his gut. He leaned over, his palms to his knees, and retched. "Dude," Isaac said, concerned, and got closer. Parker responded with a thumbs up and slow and long blink that looked painful. "I fucking knew it," Isaac said while staring at Parker's mom, too quiet for Parker to adequately hear it. "What?" Isaac shook his head. "One rung left." Parker's mom's silhouette disappeared behind the curtain of the kitchen window. Then she opened the front door and beckoned the pair to come inside. I'm getting a nasty feeling in my gut. Isaac and Parker both exhaled in relief at the same time. She was back to normal for now. Yeah, I don't trust this. His mom is definitely under the influence, or like she's definitely infested with those parasites. Okay. Alright. Chapter 5. The hideout may have been made of nailed polywood and scrap tin, but it felt like the only bright spot in Anniston. 300 yards between each of their homes, and far enough away that no one would ever hear them, enough to be bothered. They sat cross-legged on the thin wooden floor, crammed in tight enough that their knees almost touched. The lantern glow in the middle of the floor, casting light on the walls, turned their shadows into monsters behind them. Outside, the crickets had been chirping all night. Then, without warning, they all stopped at once. It wasn't noticeable at first, until the silence rushed in and became deafening. Neither felt they had much of a choice except to fill the emptiness. Isaac spoke first, monotone, like he was reading the ingredients list from a cereal box. "Welp, wrong tin," he said. "What's the worst thing you ever did, or that happened to you? Remember, no lies, no takebacks." Parker swallowed his nerves. Wrong tin had been hanging over his head for a while. He was relieved they didn't have to go jump into the quarry. School was starting sooner than they knew, and it would be worth it as the new kid to have at least one friend already. Knowing each other's deepest secrets could also protect against getting blackmailed, especially if they ended up liking the same girl. He stared at the lantern until the flame doubled. When I was 11, my sister was born dead. Started tugging the words out forcefully. Cord wrapped around her neck. In the middle of the night, at the bottom of the stairs, Mom screamed loud enough to wake the whole neighborhood. Good Lord. One night I woke up and thought the house was empty because of how quiet it was. Found her on the bathroom floor. Her face was gray and her lips were blue. Spent a week at the neighbor's house, and when I got home, I saw the hospital discharge papers on the coffee table. Saw the words suicidal ideation. The lantern popped loudly after a brief moment of quiet. It was the beginning of the end. A year and a half later, here we are in Indiana. Isaac was completely still in the whole time, and even breathed loudly enough to be heard in the small fort. His eyes stayed fixed on the lantern on the floor between them. "Okay, your turn." Isaac took a long look at him, longer than the 5 seconds, as if he was mentally sizing him up. Then he spoke, calm, as if he was reading the weather. "I killed my parents and my grandma." Holy crap! Why? Does he know about this infestation going on? What the flip? The confession hit the room like a bomb, violent and permanent. Parker waited for a half grin, a smirk, a quick gotcha that would give him a sense of relief. Never came. Isaac continued talking in the same low voice. "My parents spent my whole life doing mission trips across Southern America. I was born in Honduras 2 years ago. In June. Told Grandma on the satellite phone there was an outbreak of an illness, but they were fine. Would be on the plane in 5 days. But they didn't show up. Grandma called them, reached out to the South American government, but didn't get any answers. Thankfully, my parents finally did come home from Guatemala. Grandma met me on the porch before I could even drop my backpack. She blocked the doorway and told me, 'Your mom and dad are really tired from their trip. Let them sleep.' Even at 11, I knew jet lag didn't make you so tired you stayed locked in your room for 8 days, straight with a bodyguard at the door. After 8 days of mostly listening to Grandma shuffle around the house, I started hearing others moving around. Slow but light pair of footsteps kept walking the same 3 floorboards that made a repetitive creaking sound. On the 8th night, Grandma finally let me in the room to see my parents. They both sat down at the edge of the bed, side by side in their pajamas. Mom's eyes glanced at me, but they were empty. The lights were on, but no one was home. Dad looked at me, his eyes holding a familiar smile, except it never reached his mouth. Put out his arm and patted my head. "Hey, buddy," he said, voice exactly as I remembered. "Missed you." Then he just stopped. The smile was frozen, his breath was paused, and his eyes lost their focus. He somehow didn't blink or drool. Mom stood up and walked over to the closet door and stood looking at it. She stayed there 10 minutes, and 20, and I didn't see my dad move again while he was in the room. They were like mannequins. That night, I put my ear to the air and to listen for the usual sounds. The TV, my dad snoring, Grandma's feet shuffling into the kitchen. All I heard was the sound of those same 3 floorboards upstairs in the same familiar rhythm. Creak, creak, creak. It was infuriatingly repetitive, over and over, never speeding up or slowing down or stopping. Then Grandma's slippers went quietly across the kitchen floor downstairs. The aft bath door squealed open, then it closed. Then it opened again 30 seconds later, then closed, over and over at the same speed for a while. I never heard Dad, not so much as a small cough or even a twist on the mattress. The walking continued until birds started yelling at the sun through my window. I didn't want to move from under my bed. I heard my grandma calling me from downstairs. I didn't want to go, but what was I supposed to do? I met her in the kitchen, her back turned to me at the refrigerator. I greeted her. She said nothing. I sat at the table with trembling fingers, staring into the table. Finally, she turned around and I could see that she was holding a knife. Her eyes were empty and looked past the room as she would walk towards me. I screamed, "Grandma!" Once, twice, she didn't budge. Just kept moving slow and steady, holding the carving knife like she was about to slice my head off. I ran. I bolted out back door, across the yard and inside the shed. I had to stand on Dad's workbench just to reach. Finally got the 30-30 off the wall. My hands were shaking so bad it clacked against the hooks. When I came back inside, Grandma was at the sink with her sleeves rolled up, washing dishes, humming hymns as she did. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes, son," she said, still facing the sink. "Go wash up." Her voice was perfect, almost believable, except it was 8:30 in the morning. Levered around into the chamber. She didn't even budge at the loud metallic clack behind her. Held the gun trembling on her, then lost my nerve and started up the stairs. Mom was standing at the bedroom window with her forehead against the glass. Eyes wide and mouth agape. Dad sat in the easy chair, hands folded in his lap, staring at the wall. Mom went first. Took me 2 shots, aimed for the base of the skull, and Dad taught me with the deer. She fell backwards like a tree. Dad was easier. He was able to get the shot off in the first try with him. Then I went back downstairs for Grandma. I could barely look when she fell at the kitchen sink. Dragged them one by one into Grandma's room in the back. Between the stairs, the bodies leaking, and the smell, it took me 4 days. Wrapped them up in sheets in the bed, and I pushed Grandma's cedar armoire in front of the door. I haven't gone to that part of the house in almost 2 years. Something on the floorboard still creaks at night. I stopped talking as the flames in the lantern shriveled. In the dark outside, the crickets were still dead silent. Parker tried to get a hold of his breath. He just knew he was getting pranked. "You're joking." Isaac finally blinked. I pray to God that I was just joking. Every day. Isaac leaned forward in the lantern. "Parker, your mom's already turning," he said in a softer, more human tone. "You've seen her. You have to end it soon, or you'll be sorry." Parker ran all the way home, briar branches scratching up his legs. His lungs burned as he darted into the kitchen and flipped on the light switch. His mom was there, staring out the window. Palms were flat on the glass. Her expression was blank, like she was daydreaming. "Mom?" said in a shaky, uncertain voice. She didn't move. "Mom!" She turned around slowly, and Parker ran to tackle her. Parker's heart exploded as she threw his arms around her. She was still stiff at first, but quickly reciprocated after a few seconds and patted his head. "When is it, honey?" she asked, voice soft and polite, like a bank teller. "Did you and Isaac get into a fight?" He pulled away from her and mumbled an excuse that he was tired and ran to his room. Shut the door and locked it and propped himself up against it. Even if Isaac's story was a complete lie, Mom had been out of it until she screamed at her. She had looked right through him. Parker sat on the foot of the door, hugging his knees until his footsteps had stopped for good. Holy crap. That was a lot to take in. My goodness. I don't know. I think we got 1 or 2 more chapters left. So let's go ahead and finish it, and I'll give you my thoughts at the end of the story. All right, chapter 6. Parker waited until the moon was high and large in the sky before he decided to walk the 300 yards from his hideout to Isaac's house. He knew Isaac would be sleeping in the tent in the backyard. House condemned by its only living occupant. Parker had a knife tucked into his belt, and he really hoped he wouldn't have it to use. The loose panel in the back window squeaked softly under Parker's strength. pulled away a heap of blankets that was nailed over the frame, and crawled through, dropping onto the carpet that was nearly bare under his sneakers. Smell engulfed him immediately. Thick, wet, sweet rot, leaving hamburger meat in the summer heat. It replaced all the air in the lungs and space behind his eyes. He gagged, swallowing bile hard, and kept walking forward. He finally got to see the inside of the house. The narrow hallway was dark, with only the moonlight to guide him. At the end stood a red-painted armoire in front of the door. He knew that it was it. 3 shapes lay on the bed, wrapped from head to toe in white and gray bed sheets. The biggest one was the left, likely Isaac's dad. The smaller one in the middle was his mom. Grandma was on the right. Her body curled up in the fetal position. The fabric of the bed sheets had been soaked through years ago. Dark brown stains spread across the pale flowers. Flies rose in the lazy haze as the hair moved. Parker stood in the doorway while his knees shook. The knife seemed unnecessary now. Backed out of the room, the smell now baked into his nostrils and throat. Climbed out of the same window, jogged briefly into the woods, and vomited until nothing else would come up. The hideout was in the same as they had left it, the lantern still burning where Isaac had turned it on. A piece of notebook paper sat in the middle of the floor, weighted down by a rock, in Isaac's handwriting of a big red letters. I tried to warn you. Good Lord. Is Isaac gonna kill Parker now? What the... Oh, man. Parker read the words over and over until they no longer made sense. His chest felt crushed on the inside. Took the lantern and note and went back home. The yellow house was hit. Oh no, he's gonna go kill his mom. I'm an idiot. The yellow house was hidden in the dark except the kitchen window. Parker's mom stood there with her forehead to the glass like Isaac's mom had. She didn't flinch when he opened the screen door, didn't move until Parker called her name twice. Then he heard her turn smooth as if on a swivel. Her eyes were wide and reflective. Parker sprawled on the living room floor, with the lantern at his feet and the knife across his knees. He waited for his mother to come ask him why he had it. She never did. By early morning when the sun came up, the back door opened to Isaac in athletic shorts, covered in mosquito bites and barefoot. I know you went in, he said quietly. I didn't see you, but I know. Parker couldn't speak. The chirping birds loudly circled. Isaac stepped inside and closed the door behind him. She's almost gone, isn't she? Parker finally managed to nod. Isaac looked up. We don't have much time. We have to finish this now, before it spreads to you. Jeez. He let his backpack fall to the floor at his feet, with a distinct metal clank. Finish this? Parker asked, secretly daring Isaac to say the word out loud. Isaac didn't flinch. You got a knife, or you want to borrow my dad's rifle? Parker's stomach dropped all the way into his shoes. Are you insane? How am I even supposed to... He waved his hand around and held them out, as if he were holding an oblong watermelon. Because there was no good way to properly mime what he was asking. Wait till nightfall. Put the body in a wheelbarrow, under a blanket, and push it to my house. Parker let an exasperated sigh. And then what? Wait till the hospital calls when she stops showing up for work? Then for a few weeks, Isaac said, we go through every abandoned house up Highway 12. Sell all the copper wire, scrap metal, and abandoned lawn equipment to Ricky at the scrapyard. When we've got 400, we can buy 2 one-way tickets to Sioux Falls. They're hiring at the beef plant. Nobody asks too many questions if you know enough Spanish. I can teach you. Good Lord. This is insane. This is like... It's like killing 2 people after they found out that you had a drug operation. This is wild. Parker stared at the floor in front of him. Isaac almost had their lives already planned out. Or we could wait. Isaac continued in a low tone until your mom becomes a husk and kills you. Parker turned around and looked at his mother in the kitchen. Back turned. Stood up. No, there's another burp. Sorry. He stood up, the knife in his belt clattered on the floor. 6 weeks, he whispered. They shook pinkies once. Hard and final in a pact to meet in 3 days at the hideout once the deed was done. Outside, the cicadas were screaming again, as if they suddenly remembered how to. After 3 days, the morning rung out over their hideout. Parker was already there by the time Isaac pushed through the pine branches. Sunlight poking through the tin roof and plywood slates. Good Lord. The lantern was there, but dead. Isaac stopped in the doorway and with slumped shoulders hunched over as if he anticipated him being hit. Parker's eyes were red and swollen. Cheeks streaked in his dyed salt. The kitchen knife lay on the plywood between them. The blade streaked in mud. Every night I tried to do it, Parker whispered in a hoarse voice. It went till she'd get quiet and sneak up behind her. Or, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'd wait until she got quiet and sneak up behind her or over her bed at night. But every time I went to raise the knife, I'd see my own face in the reflection of the blade. With this psychotic look on my face, I didn't look scared or angry, but it a sinister glee. His voice broke, and he paused for a moment. I've been sleeping on the porch. I can't even walk through the house without feeling her waiting for me to just end it. Parker gritted his teeth, tried to breathe deeply. He was sure he wasn't nearly as brave as his friend Isaac. Isaac's face finally crumbled. The mask he had worn for so long had been shattered. He leaned forward, head in hands, forehead and lap. The sobs eked out of him that he had been holding in for months. Parker let his own eyes spill over. Then they sat on the floor and existed for minutes, maybe hours. Time wasn't relevant anymore, for Isaac wiped his face with his sleeve. We can't fix this, he whispered. We can only get away from it. Parker nodded. The plan came together the way only a couple of 13-year-olds can make things happen. 1 part hope, 2 parts desperation, sprinkled liberally with certainty. Every day they started work at dawn and left at dusk. They raided every abandoned house down the highway, prying copper out of the walls. They dragged broken lawnmowers and lawn care equipment to the briar patches. They sold it all to Ricky at the scrapyard for cash and rubber band rolls. For cash in rubber band rolls. After a few weeks, they had pocketed $412.37. August 18th, they made it to the Greyhound station that smelled like fried food and bleach. They ordered 2 tickets to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and the clerk didn't even look up. Parker wrote a note on the back of an electric bill. Mom, I'm sorry I couldn't kill you. I love you. Parker. Left it under a magnet in the fridge, the same place where she used to leave him a $20 bill for pizza. The bus pulled out at 5:17 a.m., exactly on time. Parker pressed... Sorry. Man, something's in my throat. My bad, I'm sorry. Parker pressed his forehead against the cold window and watched the world shrink, 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 and then disappear. Isaac was already asleep nearly cushioning Parker's shoulder with his head. Somewhere past Chattanooga, sun finally came up. Parker closed his eyes, and the bus carried them north, mile after mile, the humming of its engine, the only sound. The humming of its engine, the only sound. They never looked back. And that was when my mom became a husk. Wow. It's not really my cup of tea, I'm gonna be honest. I enjoyed some parts of it, but I kind of got lost with, how they had to, plan out, I get they had to live their own lives, but I didn't really dig how the author went about it. I mean, it's not bad, I'm not saying that, it's not my kind of horror story. But, please, I'm writing, I will read if I enjoy it or not care. Please keep writing, create what you want to create. Nobody, internet personality, tell you what to do or let that stifle your creativity. I'm just a dude trying to get these stories out there because these stories deserve to be out in the open and for people's eyes and ears to hear and listen to these. So, again, I will leave all the links in the description below if you want to check out the author or my Discord. So, it's late. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Good night.